Hello and welcome to the Drive Formula podcast, where we take trust, communication, and action to accelerate your team from 0 to 60. My name is Marcus Williams. This is Eric Lichty, and today is our deep dive into Chapter 3. It's a great chapter, lots of good stuff here, so we want to talk about the stories, get a little deeper into the concepts of Chapter 3. So if you haven't yet, the book is available for purchase at Amazon or other online retailers. We suggest that you get a copy of the book so that you can follow along, or after you listen, when you get home, you can make notes so you don't forget the things that you've learned here today, or the thoughts that you have, or the questions that you have. A great place to do that is in the book. So let's jump right into the chapter. The main topic is it's about trust and expectations.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this chapter is it's not about trust and expectations only for the employee, but for what the employee has with their leaders as well. Because a lot of times leaders just ask you to do something, but they don't give you a lot of information, right?
Very true.
And what is their part of what they're supposed to be doing within the expectations of the organization?
Yeah, and the expectations start from the very beginning. Like you're communicating what you are what you want them to do, the kind of culture you have, the expectations you have from the interview, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
My daughter, she's a teenager, she's looking for a job, high school job. And we're in this economy where every business has, we're hiring. Sorry, we're closed because we're short-staffed. She's applied to over a dozen different companies and has only heard back from 2 of them.
Really?
So what kind of training are they giving her as she enters the workforce, as far as how you're expected to behave and how you're expected to respond? And what is she learning about communication from these people who say they are hiring, but then are never actually hiring? They don't even call her for an interview or call her back. And she has work experience just like any other high school kid.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating as an adult. And we finally took her out the other day, and we had her go in person to these places to ask if they're hiring and to get a resume and to talk to the manager. And she didn't want to do it at first. She's like, that's not how they do it. It's all online now. And we said, well, who are the owners? Who are the managers? They are older people.
Yeah.
They are people from a previous generation. And to them, face-to-face communication is valuable. So go in, show them your face, show them your smile, tell them you're interested, and that will give you a leg up. And guess what? She got 2 interviews.
Oh. All about simple communication.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a different kind of world right now that a lot of teenagers think that's the only way to get things is through communication, through technology. And it's like, how much more effective is the face-to-face stuff? And how surprised are the leaders when somebody does do that?
Right. And vice versa, leaders need to learn how to engage using technology. What is the best way to communicate with your people? One of the things in the book, it talks about, what if, the car is communicating with you all the time with lights, signals, sounds, feeling, just driving down the road, your tires are communicating with you, how it feels, how it sounds. But what if it could talk? What if a car could give you verbal feedback like an employee potentially could?
Yeah.
Would you listen to it then when it's telling you, you need to pull over, my brakes are bad, you need to slow down, stop hitting the gas so hard, oh, that's squeaky, it hurts? If a car could say those things, would you listen more than you do to the lights? And if so, why don't you listen when your employees tell you things?
Yep. I actually think it's a little bit easier for employees or for a car to talk to their driver in some cases than it is for employees to talk to their leaders, because it has all the lights and gauges. It has all those sounds that come along with it, but it also has a check engine light that comes on. And if it's drastic, it starts flashing. That means that you're supposed to pull over and get the car serviced.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the employee, on employee burnout, if the leader doesn't start seeing those nonverbal signs of the person coming in not walking as fast as they used to, just tired. You can see if a person is tired, are they talking to them on a regular basis to kind of see if they can look at those verbal cues without having to, because I've had a lot of jobs that I was absolutely scared to talk to my leader about something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had a lot of anxiety to do it. I've mentioned before about a leader that did not like a certain religion that I was a part of, and just because of that, he would give me hardly anything. And so a lot of times I couldn't get what I needed without going to him and really being anxious about what I was going to say. And he would give it to me once in a while, but I simply wanted to move into a different office that was empty right next to it. He would never let me in, ever. And it was empty. There's no reason that I couldn't be in it.
I told a story about expectations in the chapter where I was hired as the expert with the expectation that I would be the expert and I would be the one that they'd come to when they had issues. I would be the one who would kind of guide the organization on this particular topic. But when push came to shove, that's not actually what they wanted, because when I did that and the news was negative, suddenly I was shut down. So the truth was they wanted affirmation and validation, not honesty. And even though they set that expectation when they hired me that they wanted honesty, it's not truly what they wanted. And I only found that out through their actions later, because what they told me was different from their actions. And that's one of the, I think, most important part of expectations is if you communicate them, you have to actually live them as well.
Absolutely. You have to follow through.
Right.
I mean, imagine if we went out to our car and it didn't start. We have the expectation of it starting every morning, running, firing on all cylinders, ready to transport us to our place that we need to go. Because we're probably in a time frame that we need to get there. Our expectations of that car is to transport us. Well, expectations of leaders, as we do get hired, they tell us this is your specific job. They need to follow through with that and remember that that's what it is. But I think on the other hand, employees need to keep them a little bit accountable for what they're doing so everybody has the right communication.
Right.
Because it's all about communication and organization, and showing appreciation would be awesome.
And there's a quote in the book: clear expectations not only create employee freedom, they allow for professional accountability. So these aren't just arbitrary rules and limitations on doing your job. It's giving you the freedom to do your job because you know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
You understand what you're supposed to do every day, so you can go ahead and do it without questioning if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, clear-cut expectations is exactly how people feel safe in the environment. That's what builds loyalty, because they go to a job, okay, this is my job today. This is what I've got to accomplish. They feel good about it. They have a sense of accomplishment when they're done at the end of the day. And everybody is still communicating, and everybody time frame and everything's still on.
Right. And as a leader, if you have clear expectations and your employee doesn't live up to them, you now have the ability to either help them fix it, or, like we say with the car, either repair it or replace it.
Yep.
Because there's no, it's very clear. You created these expectations, they didn't live up to them, so therefore there's going to be some sort of consequence, whatever you decide that's going to be. But it's much easier to do that when they have a clear job description in the first place, and the clear expectations. And frankly, that's difficult to do. Another thing in this chapter is we talked about giving them feedback, giving your employees feedback, letting them know how they're doing and where they're at. And as a leader, I can raise my hand and say I did not do that perfectly. You know, I've learned from that experience. I had an employee once where there were very clear policies and procedures, and he screwed up. He did not follow them. And so I did my best to help him fix the situation. He created a mess. I helped him clean it. And I felt like, as his leader, that's, you know, he obviously should have known he screwed up because it was a clear policy. So I helped him clean it up so that it wouldn't negatively impact the rest of the office. Well, when it came time to performance review at the end of the year, he got dinged for that screw up because it was big.
And he started arguing with me and going off on how he had no idea that he'd done anything bad, and all his reviews in the past had been positive. What's going on? And I was confused. I'm like, you screwed up royally during this term. How are you saying everything is good? And as a leader, I should have, instead of just helping him fix it, which was the right thing to do, I should have also been very clear and told him, you screwed up. This was bad. You did this wrong. I kind of assumed he knew that just because it was so serious. And it turned into, like, it was a big deal, not just, it went above our heads. So I assumed that he realized he had screwed up. But in his mind, when it came performance review time, he hadn't done anything wrong. And it was flabbergasting to me, but I learned the lesson that it's as important to give that feedback as well, not just help them fix it and get better, but they have to know why you're fixing it, that there was a mistake in the first place. That was a big lesson for me.
Well, and it's most prevalent at the time that the incident takes place as well, that you sit down with them and just say, look, you did this, we fixed it, but you need to learn that this is not acceptable.
Right.
And that's where the accountability comes in. If you do have everything set up in place, you just go and you just communicate right away. Mm-hmm. Because then assuming starts happening, and there's a lot of things that happen within it. When I worked as a corrections officer while I was getting my bachelor's degree, I could have had them do a performance review and they would have given me a really great review. But that was on me, that as an employee, that I didn't reach out and ask them to help me see that I was actually a total asset to the organization.
Yeah.
It took until I said that I was leaving the organization that they said, we've never had a problem with you in this area. You've been here 3 years. We really appreciate it, and we're very sad to go. I was like, well, where was that like 2 months ago?
Yeah.
I always stepped out of my bounds to try and help people out. And I mean, I was a great employee, not to toot my own horn, but I really strived to just make sure that everything was taken care of and they had no worries there. And they solidified it with telling me.
Yeah.
But as an employee, sometimes you need to spur the leaders on. That's the big thing about this is people are not perfect. The accidents are going to happen. Problems are going to come. It's all about your reaction and the reaction to what has happened beyond. So just like in your story, if you would have communicated that a little bit more right when it happened, then they're like, oh, yeah, that was. But, you live and learn.
Yeah, and you can't assume that just because the boss's boss came in to investigate what happened that he understands it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I still don't. I still flabbergasted, but that's on me. I was the leader. I should have communicated that better. So how, with expectations, how do we build trust so that employees feel comfortable giving us that feedback?
So I had an employee this summer that I was really trying hard to work with. He had a lot of good attributes that went to the mechanic realm. But within our mechanic shop, we have a lot of procedures to make sure cars don't come back. When you take something or drain the antifreeze, you have to run a car sometimes for a half hour to an hour to get it to bleed through the system. Well, he had 5 comebacks in 2 weeks. And so I talked to him because I wanted to retain him as an employee. He was a hard worker. He was there. And he said, I didn't do that. And he would never take accountability for it. At the end, I told him, I was like, you are not a competent mechanic because you don't follow through. And he would never listen while I was trying to train him on how we did things. He only lasted about a month and a half, and he was really upset with me that I told him that he was not a competent mechanic. Mm-hmm. I was trying through it. Some employees, it's a little bit different to do, and sometimes it's not the right fit. But it's about communicating right up front. Don't let things pass by. But when you do communicate, make sure you're telling people that they're doing good at certain things as well. Bring out positives so that you can, see the good in them and not just the bad.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story. And, as a mechanic, that they get a bad rap a lot of the times. A lot of people don't trust mechanics. And that's unfortunate, but I have an experience. We were moving cross country, and we had an older van, so I decided it was time to get the transmission flushed and get new fluid and everything, so we'd have a smooth journey. As part of some of the maintenance I wanted to do before driving cross country. So we took it into a shop. They did the job for us. A day before I was supposed to leave to drive from Utah to Maryland, the transmission dropped, went out on middle of a busy road, completely dead. So we had to get a brand new transmission put in, which we did not have the money for. And then once you put in a new transmission, you can't just drive on the freeway 80 miles an hour. You have to build into it. And turns out he didn't refill it. He flushed it, but he didn't put new fluid in it.
Oh, that's not good.
Of course, now I'm cross country because we get this new transmission and I have to go because I'm a day behind now getting there. And I've got an apartment waiting for me that I have to be there by Saturday at noon. And I call him once we get there and say, look, guys, you destroyed my transmission. No, we didn't. And they would take no responsibility for it. So my trust in mechanics went out the window, which was unfortunate. My grandpa was a mechanic. And it took a long time for me to find good mechanics like you that I could trust again because of that incident. And that was an expensive lesson.
Yeah, and people aren't perfect. That's the biggest thing about it.
Yeah.
And if, for one, you have to own up to your mistakes. I've made mistakes on stuff and I've owned up to it. That's what you have to do. And people aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Leaders aren't perfect. So as employees, look at your leader and understand that they have their own job to do. And so if they're trying to create a right environment for you, they're communicating with you, and they're creating a workplace that's safe and secure, that's trusting, really appreciate that leader and let them know. A lot of people don't talk about their showing appreciation.
Yeah, that's very true. And leaders, the best way to build trust is following through with what you said.
Absolutely.
If you said you're going to do something, then do it. If you say you're working, and let them see you do it. That was another lesson I learned as a leader, is I was doing a lot behind the scenes to support them, to protect them, because, as they say, stuff rolls downhill.
Yep.
So there was a lot of stuff coming down from above me that I was protecting them from. But they never knew that because I didn't tell them. I just shielded them from it so they could do their job. And they didn't have a good view of everything I was doing for them. So they couldn't appreciate it because they didn't know it was even happening. And I don't think that means you toot your own horn and say, look what all this stuff I'm doing for you. But be honest with what's happening, what's going on. We know people make mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's how you respond to those that builds trust.
Absolutely. Your reaction is everything. So, but yeah, this is a great chapter. I love this chapter because it just goes back to communication and organization and showing appreciation. And that's what people need. We are humans and we have feelings. We want to hear praise. We want to hear that we're doing something good. And sometimes we don't do stuff that's good, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Take that in stride and realize you are a human. You are somebody that's of value. As a leader, as an employee, everybody has value.
Absolutely. And if you hired someone for a specific purpose, teach them the expectations for the job. Start from the very beginning by acting the way you expect them to act. If you expect them to be on time, be on time. If you expect them to answer emails quickly, answer your emails quickly. Show by example, and then follow through, and you will build trust to a point where communication will be open because there is no fear anymore because you trust each other.
I really like the point that you bring up about example. You have to live what you preach. I talked to somebody the other day that was promised a raise. He was the crew boss for a construction company. They didn't give him a raise for 2 months.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I followed through with my part. I'm done. That's a valued employee that was already a crew leader, and he only worked in the position for 2 years.
Happened to one of my kids too. Same situation. Boss said she'd get a raise. Months happened. raise never came. She decided to leave. Boss said, "Why are you leaving?" "Well, I never got my raise." "What are
Yeah.
you talking about? I wrote it down. It's right here." "Well, it's not in my paycheck. And you never actually told the payroll company." And the boss said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to give you back pay for it." And
So she lied.
and my kid was like, "Well, then I made the right decision to leave."
Yeah.
Because you're not even going to own up for the mistake you just admitted that you made. You're not going to make it right.
So yeah, business is very simple, and leadership and everything is just about communication, and it's the right communication. It's your body language towards people. It's, wanting to be helpful. A leader really needs to create the right environment so that employees feel safe, secure, so they can actually focus on what they were hired for.
Right.
And that's what it all boils down to. Your car takes you from one place to another. You trust it to do a huge amount of things. I mean, take you miles, going to Maryland. How many miles was that? Do you remember?
All I remember is trying to get a little sleep at a rest stop in Ohio. And we were stuck behind a semi in a blizzard going over the Rockies.
So, the amount of trust that you had in that car, and it still got you there, even though it may have had a problem.
It did eventually, yeah.
So, do we trust our cars more than we trust our employees sometimes? In some cases, yes, because of personality types.
Yeah.
And what leaders do. And employees, like I say, and same thing. Trust your leaders and communicate with them. It's a two-way street. If you need something, talk to them about it. Be open about it. Don't go to them with, you know what, I've got this problem. How are you going to fix it as a leader? No, go to them. You are the one that's in the position. You are the one that has the best view of what you need. Go to them with solutions.
Be transparent about why. If you have to cut back, be transparent about why.
Yeah.
I think leaders tend to keep a lot more things secret that don't need to be secret. Employees know. We're not dumb.
Yeah.
We know something's going on, and we're willing to work with you. We're like an employee who's engaged is willing to sacrifice so that they can be successful and the company can be successful. So it's okay to say we're struggling right now and we need a little help. We love having you, but times are tough. Be transparent, and you'll be amazed at the increase in loyalty and engagement you'll get when they believe they're doing something for a reason and not just because you said so.
Well, and in that transparency, and if you are having troubles, tell them what you're doing to rectify it.
Right. Give them that confidence that you're working on it.
Yeah, because if you just went to them and just said, you know what, we're sucking it up this quarter, left it at that. Well, where would that employee's mind go? Oh, my job's in jeopardy.
Right.
We're doing this. Then if you were a leader, you said, okay, we're a little bit down. If you had a positive mantra about it or attitude about it, but this is the steps that we're doing to help to rectify it.
Yeah.
And to the actions taken to, where we want your job safety. So here's what we're doing. We're shifting things up. We're marketing this area. We're, doing this and this, and we're going to do good. We've got a plan and we're implementing it.
Yeah. Are you willing to give up your free gym membership for a month or two?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I can run outside for a month. But anyway, so that's chapter 3, trust and expectations. And that's a big foundation for the rest of the book. So those are important topics, because without trust and without an expectation, clear expectations of knowing what each person is supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, you can't function.
Nope. Communication, organization, and showing appreciation.
Yep. So, all right, that was our deep dive into chapter 3. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section, or you can email us at support@thedriveformula.com, and we'll talk about it in that next episode. Next week will be chapter 4. Thanks for watching.